We've debated the best college football team in America here at MarkRogersTV. Now let's debate the best college football player in America. Who should win the 2013 Heisman Trophy? Now, I believe that no vote should be cast until all the games are played. So this is my top five right now as it stands, but I reserve the right to change my top five after the conference championship games. And I believe any voters out there with an official vote that counts should have that vote rescinded and should have that right and privilege taken away if they don't vote after the conference championship games. I believe that's ridiculous to vote before all the games are played. This is not going to be a thin discussion. We're going to throw out about 10 candidates and then give you our top five. So the honorable mention list of sorts starts with Ohio State quarterback Braxton Miller. He was one of the prime candidates to start the season. A couple things happened here. The Buckeyes didn't play any spotlight games at the beginning of the season. Braxton Miller also got hurt, which hurt his statistics, and his replacement, Kenny Guyton, played just about as well as you could expect a backup quarterback to play, as the Buckeyes did not miss a beat and dominated inferior opponents. So that kind of devalued Braxton Miller. But I think we understand the guy's explosiveness, his toughness, his talent, his dynamic playmaking ability, and his improvement as a passer. 58% completion percentage in 2012, 66% passer this season, 21 touchdowns, 5 picks. He still runs the football, but not as much as he did his first 2 years. He runs it with a little bit more caution and picks his spots, but very effective. As we know, one of the best running quarterbacks in college football, 800 rushing and 8 touchdowns. Braxton Miller and his undefeated Ohio State Buckeyes in the Big Ten championship game this Saturday. Also, Washington running back Bishop Sankey is under the radar, second in the nation with 1,775 yards rushing, 5.8 per carry, 18 touchdowns. He came out of the chute very strong in the Huskies' opening win against Boise State 38-6. He ran for 161 against the Broncos and 2 touchdowns. He's had 2 of his better games against 2 of the best teams in the Pac-12 aside from Arizona State. Looking at Stanford, the best front 7 in the conference, no question. Sankey still hit him up for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, and against the Ducks, 167 and 2 touchdowns. And he saved possibly his best game, most workmanlike game for the rivalry game against Wazoo. He knocked out the Cougars with 34 carries, 200 yards, and a touchdown as the Huskies finished the regular season at 8-4. Also, throwing out the candidacy of Baylor quarterback Bryce Petty. He was seriously gaining momentum before the Bears lost that game against Oklahoma State in rout fashion, 49-17. Interestingly enough, Petty statistically did not have a bad game against Oklahoma State, completing 28 of 48, 359, and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions, but certainly wasn't on his game in that one as Oklahoma State dominated 49-17. And even the Bears' most significant win of the season and first quality opponent against Oklahoma, Petty had little to do with the outcome. It was the Bears' defense that won the game 41-12. He was only 13 of 26 for 204 against Oklahoma. Overall, Bryce Petty is 62%, 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 2 picks, and 11 rushing touchdowns for the Baylor Bears, who are 10-1 and will most likely tie for the Big 12 championship. KaDeem Carey of Arizona, one of the top backs in the nation. Check out my post from the preseason on the top 10 running backs in college football. I've got him in the top 3. KaDeem Carey of Arizona played no bad games. When we looked at the game-by-game performance of each candidate, we saw some poor performances. Out of 12 games against quality teams, you typically will. Not KaDeem Carey, no bad games. 1,700 plus yards, 5.3 per carry, 17 touchdowns. He did miss the opener against New Mexico State. You would expect that he would have run them ragged. So he did miss that game, and he finished off well against Arizona State in the big loss for Arizona. But the game before that, in the most surprising result of the Pac-12 season, when Arizona annihilated Oregon 42-16, he was a workhorse beyond belief. 48 carries, 206, and a touchdown against the Oregon Ducks. Would also like to bring up the candidacy of one Carlos Hyde, who possibly could be the best running back in college football, especially with Todd Gurley ailing in most of the Bulldogs' season this year. Carlos Hyde ran for almost 1,300 yards. He's got the Big Ten championship left. He's run for 7.8 per carry. That's an Ohio State record. 14 touchdowns, and he missed 4 games. 3 by suspension. Then he came back for the Florida A&M game, and the Buckeyes certainly didn't need him, so he got 4 carries. He basically missed 4 games, still ran for 14 touchdowns and 1,300 yards, saved his best for last, and when the Buckeyes really needed him in the second half against Michigan, 226 yards against the Michigan defense, or the Buckeyes might not be undefeated right now. Carlos Hyde for 12-0 Ohio State. All right, those are the other candidates. Let's get to the top 5. Here we go. At number 5, we've got Johnny Manziel, 8-4 Texas A&M. It's not been the magical season that we saw last season, but Johnny Manziel is actually a better passer and has better passing stats this year. He runs less, and the defenses are more cautious and more knowledgeable about how to contain Johnny Manziel on the ground. Still, 69% completion percentage, 3,700 yards, 33 touchdowns, 13 picks. He doesn't have that Heisman moment like he did last season in upsetting number 1 Alabama on the road. But Johnny Manziel looked to have that moment early in the season against Bama when he made that ridiculous, crazy Fran Tarkenton scrambling move back and forth behind the line of scrimmage before he heaved it up and threw it to Mike Evans. But A&M lost that game by a touchdown, and then the season went down from there, and Johnny Manziel lost to all quality opponents on the schedule and really had a clunker against LSU the second to last game in going 16 for 41 in a blowout loss. But Johnny Manziel at number 5 on our ballot. At number 4, we're going to go with Boston running back Andre Williams, BC Eagle running back here, 2,100 yards, 6.4 per carry, 17 touchdowns. Interestingly enough, he doesn't catch the football. He's got no receptions this season. He had a couple off games, and I'm sure the line of scrimmage had something to do with it in regards to USC and Clemson outmanning the Boston College Eagles up front. He had 17 carries for 38 yards in a loss to USC, and against Clemson, a game that BC overall played very well and were competitive to the fourth quarter, he had 24 carries for just 70 yards in that game. Keep in mind that Boston College was a mess last year at 2-10, and he's one of the main reasons that they are bowl eligible at 7-5. He played well against a tough Florida State defense, one of the best in the nation, 149 yards against the Noles. He ran for 275 against North Carolina State, or 339 against North Carolina State, 295 against New Mexico State, 263 against Maryland. I need the contacts in. Unfortunately for Boston College, and hopefully this is not a serious injury, he did leave the final game of the season against Syracuse in the third quarter and only gained 29 yards. Andre Williams at number 4 on our ballot. At number 3, we go to Northern Illinois and quarterback Jordan Lynch, who led the Huskies to the Orange Bowl against Florida State last season. He's looking to do the same this season at 12-0, playing the MAC championship game coming up on Friday night. We talk about Jordan Lynch's rushing stats first, because this is where he really separates himself. 1,755 rushing, 7.1 per carry, 20 rushing touchdowns, and he's throwing very well. He's not a prolific passer, but 64%, 2,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 5 picks. Those are nice passing numbers as well. He's the most prolific player in just looking at statistics, the quarterback position, and for an undefeated football team. Got to take into consideration the competition there. His last game of the season was interesting against Western Michigan, by far his worst passing game at 5 for 17, but the Huskies won easily, and all he did was chip in with 321 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Okay, we've got Jordan Lynch at number 3. Our number 2 guy, and when he launched that 99-yard touchdown pass on the play action in the end zone, down the sideline to Amari Cooper, 99 yards, to give Alabama a 7-point lead in the Iron Bowl against Auburn, I thought, Heisman moment. A.J. McCarron, 68% completion percentage, 2,600 yards, 26 touchdowns, 5 picks. Last season, 30 touchdowns, 3 picks. Started off very pedestrian against Virginia Tech. The Tide was having offensive line issues. He hit on only 10 of 23 in the opener for 110 yards. But he's performed well in the big games. Against LSU, 3 touchdowns, against no picks, against Auburn, despite the loss. And that's what's going to kill him in this race, was that everyone was expecting a championship run from Alabama. A.J. McCarron still hit for 277 yards and 3 touchdowns with no picks against the Auburn Tigers. And, of course, he didn't get the opportunity to win the football game because of the crazy finish, and Auburn goes on to the SEC championship game. All right, at number 1, this is no big secret here. I think this guy has separated himself from the field. Unfortunately, what's going on off the field could really distinguish this Heisman race as the strangest in history. But we'll stick to football right here because we don't know the facts. Jameis Winston of Florida State, the number 1 team in the country at 12-0. Winston completing 69%, 3,400 yards, 35 touchdowns, 8 picks. He's run for 3 touchdowns. Came out of the gate against Pitt as a redshirt freshman, completed 25 of 27 on national TV for 4 touchdowns and no picks. And the legend and the legacy started already on opening night. Against Clemson, didn't have a great, well, yes, he did have a great game, 444 yards, did throw an interception against Clemson, but that was really the milestone game for this Florida State team and for Jameis Winston this year in defeating Clemson in completely dominant fashion, 51-14. The other big game against Miami at the time, the Canes were number 7 in the country, 21 of 29 for Jameis, 325, a touchdown, 2 picks. He got off to a slow start in that game, but the Noles dominated. And then there was the play that could be the signature play for his Heisman candidacy against Maryland, and I won't even try to describe it. If you have not seen it, check it out. Jameis Winston against Maryland. Incredible play, incredible throw, and he's made several others like it. All right, so we've got Jameis Winston at number 1. We've got A.J. McCarron of Alabama at 2. Jordan Lynch, Northern Illinois at 3. Andre Williams of Boston College at number 4. And Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel, Texas A&M, number 5 on our Heisman ballot. But of course, there are championship games to be played. Now we would love to hear from you and your Heisman selection right here on Mark Rogers TV.